What is a Gothi? Figured for a introductory video explaining my role in my kindred. That makes sense. Spelled G-O-F-I. The F is the TH in English. It's the Thursals rune in the Futhark, the Elder Futhark. The closest colloquialism, priest, simply. But it's a little more than that. Obviously, priest is more of a Christian term. The origin of the word priest means elder, so it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's just that, obviously, that's for a different religion. It's also really important to understand that sometimes that role is taken by random person in the kindred. This can be taken by, you know, whoever the leader of the house, whatever. We have chosen to make it a specific person, i.e. myself. But it's also very important to realize that you are your first Gothi. You are the very first step in learning and understanding. You are your very first teacher. It's through your perception that you understand things. So a bit about myself and why I'm the Gothi of my kindred. Well, I have been in Asatru since about 2006. So I found the northern perspective. I don't have faith. I have perspective based on the archetypes of my ancestors. That perspective. Trying to explore that perspective. So I started studying Norse mythology into 2005 as I joined the Marine Corps. Well, boot camp was 1, 2, 3. Remember that? It was January 23rd. Pretty easy to remember. 1, 2, 3. 2006. At the time, I'd say it was more into Eastern philosophy with a heavy Bruce Lee influence. I want to say Taoist, but if we're going to be honest, it was a heavy Bruce Lee influence. So I started, it was an MOS school. MOS is military occupational specialty. It's fancy word for job. Military fancy word for job. Jab. Jip. Jip. So I started looking into druidry, and I came across the term Asatru in a book, and ironically, just all these, like, you know, Viking heathen things started popping up in my life. So obviously, the term, that was one. And somebody sold me an Monomarth 3-disc box set, and I had been studying Norse mythology. And also a fourth one that I actually just remembered. I wanted to get Mjolnir tattooed on me because I read in a book that I can't remember, that heathens got the Mjolnir. I was like, oh, I should totally get like a Thor's hammer on my chest. I was planning on getting one over here. I have one here. Needs to get touched up. There's a story behind that. Some other video maybe. So all these things kept coming together, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna, do this thing. I'm gonna go with this religion. If it doesn't work out, cool. Just keep doing the thing I was doing before, which is essentially being a, I guess, non-denominational philosopher of sorts. I started, I think like most people, just kind of studying the lore. Taught myself runes pretty early on. Just grabbed a couple of books. This is before smartphones were a thing, obviously, and I didn't really have easy access to the internet. I had to go all the way down to the library to use the internet, because I'm an old person. First kindred that I was like part of, I don't feel like I was officially a part of it, but definitely hung around them. My first blowout with them, Roots of the Yggdrasil, they called themselves. Still know the person who was essentially the Gothi of that kindred. Interesting guy. He's a bit of an outlier as far as heathens go. That matters too much. So my first blowout was Skjoldr. Yeah, I kind of jumped around a little bit here and there. A lot of self-study, self-exploration. After Roots of Yggdrasil, I deployed. It was me, kind of on my own. While I was deployed, the person that was essentially the Gothi of that kindred, he moved back east. He was from back east, so I didn't really have anything to go back to. But while I was deployed, interestingly enough, I met another Marine,
and we just hit it off. No. As I'm walking into the barracks in Quantico Viper, because that's where we were trained for some, because, you know, what's a better place to train for the desert than freezing-ass Quantico, Virginia. When I walked in, I had my Mjolnir on, different one than this one, and he was wearing a torque. We ended up kind of exploring some of the concepts, but we did actually do Sigarblot in Iraq with Mountain Dew. If you're unaware, Iraq is a dry country. They don't allow alcohol of any sort. I barely knew what I was doing at the time. So the water bottles are everywhere in Iraq because they don't want you to dehydrate, right? We took the water bottles and cut them and drew runes on them with Sharpie. And we did bloat to the gods, to Odin, who, you know, Skjoldr. If you're unaware, Skjoldr means victory. It's another name for Odin. I kind of didn't know much about the actual. I couldn't remember much about the actual bloat ritual, so I improvised with some stuff I remembered from some of my Wiccan friends. Oh, it was kind of an interesting hodgepodge of me remembering stuff. I did it right there in the optics shop. He was in a different platoon. He was optics. I was motor T. So after Iraq, I was kind of in a bad way. You know, a lot of anger and whatnot. Explored some of the darker aspects of Asatru. We can get into that in future videos. Learned quite a bit. Yeah, and I think I'm better for all that, of course. And then, honestly, from there, I was just really solo. You know, a lot of learning stuff on my own. I've always loved to learn. I think that's also very integral for any Gothi. The Jarl of our kindred, I led him to heathenry because I just saw he had way too much in common with Loki. Mentioned it to him. So it was kind of him and I, off and on. You know, we had friends, and we'd hang out and drink, but we didn't really do bloat or anything. Long story short, a little bit before I moved to Humboldt, I was actually dating a Christian woman at the time, who was not happy with my beliefs and practices. Despite trying to be very supportive of me, she would flip out, like, every time we, you know, would go off to do bloat or have a moot. Moot means meeting, by the way. See, I was kind of in a bad way, you know, living where I was at the time, with the Christian gal. And Sai and I had been discussing having a kindred. It's kind of integral for heathens in general to have, you know, a community to go to vent to be part of. It's kind of integral to human beings, really, when you think about it. We're social creatures. That's part of the things that we thrive on. So why not cultivate a family of like-minded individuals that can move themselves in a positive direction? I became the Gothi of this kindred. Actually, our Jarl Sai and I were planning on, you know, starting a kindred. He already had a bit of a group that, you know, came together for solstice, you know, twice every year, because solstice is twice every year. It's been an interesting journey. I was thinking about writing a book about it. Still might. Like, Gothi Year 1 or Kindred Year 1. Just, you know, do's, don'ts, kind of helping out. There's been a few issues along the way, nothing too crazy. Yeah, it's about 3 years now we've been Gothying it up. So before I go into explaining what a Gothi actually does, kind of explain some terminology. So Gothi means God-man. It essentially means somebody that speaks for the gods. I don't think that I hear the gods in my head or anything. I do think that I have a natural knack for the esoteric, and so esoteric means
the mysteries, right? It doesn't necessarily mean like magic and woo and all that. Esoteric can simply mean just trying to understand something. Gothi is the male connotation, Githya is the female connotation, Godar is the plural. I have seen somebody that went by Gotha, and I think they were trying to make it like a weird gender neutral thing, but I don't know. Honestly, do whatever the hell you want. A kindred is very much geared toward its people. There's no like one size fits all. This is all like an expression of you and the group, and it's really geared toward the group and what you need. Like, you know, some are more conservative than others. Like our group tries to be as apolitical as possible. We have liberals and conservatives and all the in-betweens. You know, one-on-one, I'll have an intellectual conversation with somebody about politics, but I don't expand on that as far as like actual kindred events. You know, we're not like a Christian church that, you know, might be super conservative, usually conservative. So what do I do as a Gothi? I hold ceremony, lead to a certain extent. My kindred is a little bit more unique because we have both a Gothi and a Jarl. Oftentimes they were the same. That's something that we chose to do because it tended to work out a little bit better. Now, what does a Gothi do? What are my actual functions? I mean, pretty simply, you know, being in charge of rituals and explaining why we're here. I remind people before we do a rite why we're there, the symbolism of gods, this, that, and the other. I also think it's very important not to harp or preach. Ironic, giving it's kind of a priestly thing, but I don't force my opinion on others. I say what I know, and I open for discussion. Our moots, which we do weekly, was monthly. We discuss a topic, and, you know, some of us believe in literal incarnations of the gods, some of us believe in figurative incarnations of the gods, some of us don't really have anything to do with the gods. For them, it's, you know, more ancestral. For some people, it's more communal. Some people are literally in the kindred because they like the group itself, not necessarily even the religion itself. We even have people in our kindred that aren't even Asatru. You know, we're just building camaraderie in that sense. So lots of different opinions are always good. And that's really what's worked for us, to be honest. The two main rituals are bloat and stumble. They kind of blend together, to be honest, and there's a lot of like conjecture on where that kind of intermingles. I'll do a more specific video on that and like kind of the processes. I know there's some out there that are a little bit more complicated. I can do like a simple, hey, this is what we just do every holiday, basically. And every holiday we try to do something a little bit different. We also try to create our own traditions. It was very localized. Asatru, heathenry, the old tradition, Fornsider, was very localized. You know, one town might have a little bit difference than you know, the village over the hill, right? House to house too was even different. So I don't think it's too outside the box to actually just have our own traditions as a kindred. We even do a Drenga ritual, you know, where we are accepting the individual as a Drenger, which is a terminology I can go over in another video. I mean, it's an interesting role. You know, it's been kind of an interesting ride over the past like 3 years or so. If you're really interested in being Gothi, there are programs out there, you know, like ordinations and whatnot. Honestly, like, it might have been easier for me had I went through something like that instead of, you know, just being like the most experienced, essentially, and taking that experience and utilizing it. You can study on your own, you know, study the meanings of the gods, explore that with others, the meanings of the ancestors. There's also a heavy focus on, you know, the Asir. Maybe step back from that a little bit, you know, look at other things. I think it's very important to look at something from a different perspective. One of the things that I'm planning on doing with these videos is kind of highlighting archetypes, and those different archetypes are kind of like essentially pieces of the human mind.
This is going to be the first in multiple videos here. I'm gonna do a few interviews, the Kindred. Yeah, I just want to show folks, if either you're interested in Asatru, or maybe you're Asatru yourself, maybe you're searching, maybe you've been doing it for a while. Feel free to comment down below and tell me if you think I'm wrong about stuff. One of the core foundational pieces of my personal philosophy has always been to try to achieve a truly unbiased mind. Now, obviously, there are certain factors in the human mind that make that like literally impossible, but I don't think that means you shouldn't try to achieve that. I don't think that means that you shouldn't try to become as unbiased as possible. I would rather be proven wrong than stay wrong. So if I say something that you disagree with, you know something more about, please feel free to tell me. I would say that if you're aspiring to become Gothi, or even just Asatru in general, the best thing you can do is study. Just look stuff up. Look into things. Don't delve into conspiracy. It's really easy, if you're on any spiritual path, to delve into the world of flat earth and Zeta Reticulan Alpha Draconian overlords. So I promise not to have any personal crap about me in the beginning of the video, because I absolutely hate that. I'm like trying to get to the meat of like a subject, and it's some like rando dude on the YouTubes, and I'm like, I don't care about your life, buddy, just get to the thing. So I'll only ever put that at the end. So I do have a Facebook page, Wolf Priest, which, kind of makes sense. Grim Wolf, Gothi, yeah. It's pretty much all I use. I have an Instagram, _Grim Wolf, but I hardly ever use the thing. Occasionally I upload doodles there. And then obviously my YouTube name is Gothi Grim Wolf. Grim Wolf is actually a personally stylized kenning. Grim meaning masked or hooded, and obviously wolf is wolf. Well, Ulfhednar was a name for the wolf hood that they wore, so Grim Wolf, Ulfhednar. Like, subscribe, comment. You should know how YouTube works at this point, if you're on the YouTubes.